Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. And if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
Sure. Thanks for having me on the program. My name is Harvinder Johal. I live in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada, which is on the West Coast.
And what do you do for a living?
Yeah. What do I do for a living? Multiple things, but my main focus right now is I am the CRO of Vantage Hemp, which is a CBD-based business in Greeley, Colorado.
Awesome. So how did you get into the CBD business in the first place?
Really by fluke. And most of my entrepreneurial experiences have been really based on timing. I had met someone about 9 years ago. He was looking for some funding, and it was a media-based company in the cannabis space. So I really wasn't involved in cannabis directly, more indirectly. And when that happened, it really kind of interested me more to learn about this space. Legalization was happening in Canada, so it was a good time to be involved. Unfortunately, it got a little crazy there with the skyrocketing stock market valuations and sort of the silly money that was being thrown around. So I was involved in probably 4 or 5 different cannabis companies, and then just kind of got tired of the craziness that was happening up here in Canada. So when the Farm Bill came forward in the US in 2018, we really thought that, it'd be a great opportunity to go into more of a regulated environment that's not marijuana, largest market in the world, and, be at sort of the foundational starting. And that's kind of how my 3 or 4 cannabis opportunities then led to Vantage Hemp.
Awesome. So in terms of Advantage Hemp, is it more of a direct to consumer business or retail? What is that?
No, it's really B2B. We have started a bit of a direct to consumer side of the business, but really our focus is B2B, and we have 2 aspects to the business. So one is where we take raw hemp biomass that's grown, in the United States. We bring it into our manufacturing facility in Greeley, and we will turn that flower into an oil or into a powder. So those extracts are then shipped internationally. Probably 90% of our customers are outside the US, and then they will use those extracts to produce finished goods. The other side of the business is where we actually will produce the finished good for you. We'll put your label on it or your specs, and then we will ship it to you, and then you sell it through your channels.
For sure. So if the B2B business is doing so well, what made you want to start this channel that you opened up, direct to consumer?
It's kind of like with any business, I always look at it from the perspective of what's coming down the pipe. Right. And the extract business will continue to grow, but we took a different sort of path. We're really a pharmaceutical company that happens to be in the hemp space. So the market wasn't really ready for API level extracts. A lot of people are happy with food grade. There was kind of a different movement at the time. We always thought, let's be where we need to be in 5 years. Where will the industry be in 5 years? It's not going to be less regulated. It'll be more regulated, right? Especially once the FDA decides, what path they want to go, or if there's a Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 shift in the US. So from our perspective, it would have been great to stay in the extract side, but the international markets are highly regulated. It takes a lot of time to get those channels set up. So in the interim, we saw a real opportunity to take it sort of that next step. So we really have 3 lines of business now. We have the API extracts. We can prepare bulk formulation, where we literally can give you the raw material for you to put directly into either a tincture or whatever product you're making. And then the finished goods business, which is actually the fastest growing of the 3, oddly enough.
For sure. So in terms of the finished goods side, how are you currently marketing your products?
So we don't directly market the products because they're also B2B as well. So we will make those products to a specific spec, and then we will ship them to the customer. We make a broad range of products. What was interesting a few years ago, because of the regulatory environment, literally, our processor stopped processing credit cards last week with no real, insight as to why. They just said,
you're not the first person that has come on this podcast.
Yeah. So, a startup in itself is already difficult, right? And
Yeah.
if anyone started a company, they can, you have all the issues of funding and market share and all those other things. And then you throw in these things where, like, literally just in the last 2 weeks, we've had our credit card processing be terminated. We've had shipments returned because, for whatever reason, that the shipping entity on the other side wasn't comfortable with bringing that product in. We had one shipping company call us and say, we're no longer shipping CBD. So here's a federally regulated sector with no concern, yet we still have all of these challenges that they have on the marijuana side. So, it's kind of crazy to me because when you look back, we actually said Vantage Hemp, and we put hemp in the name to specifically state that we are not marijuana, and yet it still hasn't really made the difference that we thought it would be. Like, we recently had a situation where I had to write a letter for an employee to their bank stating that we do nothing in marijuana for them to qualify for a mortgage. To me, that's crazy, right? It's a federally regulated space, and I just don't see, in the 11 startups that I've been involved in, I've never dealt with this level of just strange activities, right? Things that you can't prepare for, right? In any other business, you're always preparing for, a competitor or, product quality issues. Like, you're always internalizing those problems and trying to figure out how to do it better, that CQI or whatever you're focused on. Here, we're being bombarded by so many things externally that how do you prepare for it? Like, if, DHL doesn't want to ship a cannabis shipment, I really don't have much control over that, right? I can't force them to do it. So we have to use a lot of third-party logistics companies. And, it's a lot more work than if I was just shipping a widget.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, so in terms of your products, right? Like, are you selling your products directly, or do you do like, private label also? What does that look like?
Yeah, we do white label, private label. We also have our own line of Vantage Hemp products that can be sold in, regulated environments. It really just comes down to the customer, right? We try to be as flexible as possible because the industry is nascent. It's still, maturing, and the sand is shifting. So if you get too far down a certain path and you don't have flexibility, it can really be a problem. And a few years ago, we recognized that we probably were overzealous in how quickly we thought, the regulatory environment would change. And so that constricted sales. And obviously, as CRO, I have to be sitting thinking, okay, if we're not generating the revenue that we should be on the CBD side, how can we leverage our assets to expand? So over the last years, we've shifted the company from really being a CBD company to being a plant-based wellness company. So we now extract non-psychedelic mushrooms. We also extract oleander. So the shift to being plant-based has helped because it does open up more markets that are less regulated for us. Ultimately, I do believe, we will change the name of the company because it won't be purely a hemp business in, let's say 24 months.
Makes sense. So obviously, either way, right, you're in a very competitive space. So how do you differentiate yourself in this market?
It's an interesting question. So I had somebody ask me maybe late February, who are your competitors? So I listed all 5, and then I had to give them the asterisk, which is they are no longer in existence. So the 5 companies that were truly our competitors that I would have said, they're competitive to us, they're competing against the same customers and base, they've all gone bankrupt. Right. So, I would not suggest this to any entrepreneur that you would use attrition as a strategy, but it has actually been a pretty powerful mechanism for us. Due to our funding model and the way we are set up, we just haven't had the challenges that a lot of these companies have had with, funding their businesses and going through that process of, either being public or going public early and the challenges that come along with investment, right? Because those investors want a return. So right now we're in a pretty good spot. I would never say we don't have competition, but we have a lot less competition. And I think the other big reason we've been successful is we really built a pharmaceutical business first, right? So I think these standards that are now coming into place are starting to benefit us more so than if somebody built a food processing facility, because that's hard to scale up. We can scale down, but scaling up is a much different challenge. And we built the buildings from scratch. We designed them from scratch. So we put a lot of effort into really thinking, let's build a business that's going to be effective in 7 years. And I think that vision is what's carried us through to this point. And it hasn't been easy because, the industry's gone right and we've always gone left. And that can be a pretty lonely path at times.
For sure. So obviously now in 2024, many companies use high-level technology like AI in their business. So do you guys currently use AI? And if not, where could AI maybe come in and add value in 2024?
I'm really interested in seeing this whole movement with AI, right? I think it's kind of the shiny ball syndrome, right? So I'm going to see where it plays out. I think there'll be a lot of early adopters and they won't get the ROIs that they expected. I think for a tech-based company, AI is going to be a faster incorporation rate because you can take those rote skills and you can shift them very quickly, right? If it's code generation or automated support or things like that, that's an easy model. But when I look at our business, it's a manufacturing business. AI can help grow better hemp, but I still have to grow it. I still have to prepare it. I still have to ship it to Greeley. So there's a lot of things that AI is not going to replace. It may make it better, but we're not in a position to suddenly say, hey, there's 6 CO2 extraction machines running and somehow AI is going to run them. I don't see it happening anytime soon that we would be switching. Now, the things that we can work on are the integration of data, right? So can we flow data at a faster pace between our operations and our front end so that we can start to realize, hey, can we create more efficiency around our process? And, even simple things like we're trying to do the UPS integration into our Business Central software, right? So you can automate tracking numbers, things like more of those sort of lower skill areas. I think we can have an impact, but at the end of the day, it's still a human business. Until they come up with the, humanoid robot, then I think we might have a different conversation. But I will definitely look at AI without it.
Have you thought about AI for like customer service, explain your products, ingredients, like if your customers have questions?
If our DTC side grows, definitely, chatbots and all of it will be in place. We do have some of it right now with our CRM, but as a B2B business, if we're shipping someone 100 kilos of isolate, all they care about is, I need your tracking number. Is it going to arrive on time? So it's not as imperative. Now, with some of the other businesses that I've been involved in, sure, I could see AI having a role. But I think, a lot of companies may jump in too quick. Like it's not going to be the panacea to all your problems. And if you 100%. Think it is, then you're already in trouble.
100%. So what would you say is like the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before you joined this business and also before you started your career?
Well, I hate to say it. If I knew how difficult Vantage Hemp would be, I probably would have delayed it by 3 years, right? Because I think we were the first market movers and the regulations have just been so slow. So it's just stymied us along the way. We've looked at sales cycles in certain countries that have taken 2 years. I didn't expect that, right? So like when we're shipping a product to a foreign country, we have to go through so many steps, show them so much documentation. And you got to remember, regulators aren't sitting at their desk just waiting for me to call. So they may take a month to review your document. Then it may take a month to have a response. So the only thing I would shift is that I probably would have come in a little later, right? But at the same time, it may benefit us because now we have become a market leader, which was not our intention either. And in general, I think too many people focus on a specific goal. And I think that's dangerous, at least from what I've learned, is you're not going to be, there's very few entrepreneurs that I believe that have said, I'm going to achieve this specific goal and achieve it. Right? Anything I've experienced, it happens probably 5 times slower and it's 3 times more expensive than you thought. So I think some of the folks that I've dealt with over time, when you're just so enamored with that one goal, it kind of blinds you to what's happening. And I think that's where you need to be careful. And it's kind of like life, right? Like if you had told me, in 2006, let's say, that I'd be living on an orchard in Kelowna, BC, running a cider business and, having a CBD business in another country, I would have been like, are you crazy? What are you thinking? Right? Like my path was really to larger centers. In the pharmaceutical industry, I would either be now in Europe or I'd be in California. So for you to come along and say that I'm going to be doing what I'm doing right now, I literally would have thought you're nuts, right? Probably would have deleted your phone number. So I think sometimes when I've seen entrepreneurs get into trouble is that they're just so focused on that one specific goal that it does deter you from other opportunities. So there has to be some flexibility in what you're doing. And, the other issue is the extreme side is the guys that pivot every 7, 8 months. That doesn't work either. Right. So there has to be a balance between I have a goal, but I also have to be aware of what's happening in the environment that I'm in. Because, if you can keep that nimbleness, especially as a startup, it's critical. A company that's 30, 40 years operationally doesn't need to be as nimble. But as a startup, you need to be, in my opinion.
For sure. So if we're going to have this conversation again in 1 year from now, where do you see things going for Vantage Hemp?
Well, I mean, you have an interesting political environment in your country right now. So
Right.
that could have a tremendous impact on the company, depending on which direction it goes.
Right.
There is a movement for the DEA to reschedule cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. If that happens, then the domestic market will definitely start to flourish, but it will also help with our export market as well. So I think that one political event would sway the future significantly. The other benefit for us is, and I've talked to a few folks about this, people, how can you be in this business? It's so challenging. It's so devalued. I totally understand all that. But my question to you is, what other business is going to allow me to have potentially 3 billion new customers in the next decade? Find me one. I will gladly invest in that business tomorrow or participate. So I think that's where people forget about the opportunity. I mean, Germany just went legal last week. The vote went through. So there's another 90 million people that, have a total addressable market to pursue, right?
Right.
When you look at the deregulation that's happening globally right now over the next, 2 to 5 years, there's going to be a tremendous amount of innovation, new products, new customers, new markets, and we are well positioned, to participate in that as well.
For sure. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing your website or social media, or even just best ways to get in contact?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously, vantagehemp.com is our main website. I have a LinkedIn profile. I'm fairly active on that. You can always reach out to me. I do have some folks that, will let us. I'm not going to say I'm right or wrong, but, I can give you my experience, right? My experience over 11 companies has been pretty diverse from, pharmacy to tech to agriculture. So I've been fairly fortunate to have been involved in multiple sectors. I will openly say that Vantage Hemp will likely be my last one because I don't have the gestational fortitude I had, 20 years ago. And I'm glad it's the most complex one, right? Because I've never had a business where, I can have a customer anywhere in the world. It's in a foreign country. I can't drive to it, right? So it's like there's a lot of complexity to running a business in a more remote manner. But, I'm very proud of what we've achieved. I think we've set a standard in the industry. We didn't expect to be an industry leader, and I believe we are. And I think over the next year, we're going to have some pretty amazing opportunities because we've just spent the time, right? We haven't shifted into another area. We stayed sort of true to the core of what we wanted the business to be. And I think the next year, if this political situation goes our way, it's going to be pretty exciting for us.
So, well, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
Take care. Bye.